As soon as Caitlin Clark and the Indiana Fever were eliminated, Alyssa Thomas, Connecticut's best player, or Connecticut's most hyped player, went to the podium and started complaining about Caitlin Clark fans.
I think in my 11-year career, I've never experienced the racial comments from the Indiana Fever fan base.
Alyssa Thomas has just been suspended for a brutal incident involving Caitlin Clark, and the meltdown that followed is nothing short of embarrassing. After a disappointing performance against the Minnesota Lynx in the playoffs, it seems she couldn't handle the heat. So in her post-game interview, instead of owning up to her mistakes, she decided to pull the race card out of thin air, directing all the attention toward Clark's fans and accusing them of racism. So if you're watching this video, there's a 99% chance you're a Caitlin Clark fan yourself. According to Alyssa, that apparently makes you a racist too. Well, thanks for enlightening us, Alyssa.
Those guys, they're the racists, when really, y'all are the racists.
It's wild how someone can overlook Clark's incredible stats and claim her success is just because of her skin color. Alyssa might have earned that suspension, but what exactly did she say that caused all this drama? Why is everyone suddenly turning on her? And is there any chance the league will forgive her? Let's dive into the details.
We all know what this really is. It's an attack on Caitlin Clark. Caitlin Clark's the wrong face for this league because her fans are so racist.
The Connecticut Sun just suffered a humiliating exit from the playoffs after a brutal beatdown by the Minnesota Lynx in Game 2. After a tough performance on the court, Alyssa Thomas headed into the post-game interview already looking like she was on the verge of snapping.
It's unacceptable, honestly. And there's no place for it. And we've been professional throughout the whole entire thing, but I've never been called the things that I've been called on social media, and there's no place for it.
When a reporter finally brought up her performance, it was like a switch flipped. Instead of addressing the obvious, her complete no-show in the playoffs, Alyssa immediately went on the offensive, accusing Caitlin Clark's fans of being racists. She didn't suggest there were just a few online trolls or mention struggles with social media hate. No, she went all out, labeling Clark's entire fan base as racists who are supposedly destroying the mental peace of Black players.
You know, we come to play basketball for our job and it's fun, but we don't want to go to work every day and have social media blown up over things like that. It's uncalled for, and something needs to be done, whether it's, them checking their fans or this league checking. There's no time for it anymore.
It felt like she had been sitting on this idea, waiting for the perfect moment to unleash it, just hoping someone would bring up her flop of a game so she could flip the narrative. You could see it on the reporters' faces. They were caught off guard, unsure how to respond. No one pressed her for details or asked for evidence. It was a complete curveball.
Instagram and Twitter, these are choices we make. There's an easy way. The league doesn't have to get involved. The Indiana Fever don't have to do something to get you away from social media. Put your phone down. Don't download the apps. Don't engage.
They just let her go off, allowing her to shift the narrative from her playoff disaster to a manufactured controversy. Instead of being torn apart for her terrible performance, the focus quickly shifted to Alyssa Thomas versus Caitlin Clark's fan base. It's almost impressive how fast she flipped the script, turning herself from the scapegoat of the game into a so-called victim of racist fans.
Well, now they found another victim, the fans of Indiana. Now, I'm going to side a little bit with these idiots. I'm going to side a little bit with Alyssa Thomas, who said she is the latest WNBA woke gas bag to rip Indiana Fever fan over alleged racism, demanding the franchise and league do something about it. What do you want them to do?
But you have to wonder, was this really just a heat-of-the-moment rant? Or was it a calculated move to deflect the mounting criticism? Alyssa Thomas came out swinging, claiming that in her entire 11-year career, she's never faced this kind of abuse until this season. And who's she pointing fingers at? The Indiana Fever's fan base, the same group that's been riding the Caitlin Clark hype train ever since her jaw-dropping rookie season began.
But who gives a rat's ass? Seriously.
But here's the kicker. Did she bother backing up her claims with, I don't know, a single shred of evidence? Nope, not a chance. No examples, no incidents, not even a vague tweet to point to. Instead, she threw out a blanket accusation, basically implying that the entire Fever fan base is out to ruin her mental peace. Why? Because apparently, Caitlin Clark's mere presence in the league is just that toxic. Nice try, Alyssa.
Caitlin Clark is Kunta Clark. She's the actual slave that everybody else is exploiting for their benefit. Angel Reese included at the top of that list. Now Alyssa Thomas jumps in and says, let me get my piece.
But let's talk about the timing. Why drop these bombshells right after getting crushed in a high-stakes playoff game? It couldn't be more obvious that she was desperate to change the narrative. Alyssa knew the media would be ready to pick her apart for that dismal performance. They were probably waiting to grill her on why she folded when her team needed her most, or why she let herself get completely outplayed on the biggest stage of the season. So instead of facing the music, she pulled the ultimate misdirection play. Flip the blame onto Caitlin Clark's fans and hope everyone forgets she even stepped foot on the court that night.
If you got people in a room, if you got a bunch of dudes in a room and says, let's fuck up the WNBA, we couldn't have came up a master plan what these women have done.
But here's where things get really shady. By calling out Clark's fans, Thomas subtly painted Clark herself as the root of the problem. Think about it. If Clark's influence is supposedly bringing out all this negativity, then she's indirectly portraying Clark as some sort of villain in this entire mess.
Dejanay Carrington, as we've talked about earlier this week, in game 1, poked Caitlin Clark in the eye intentionally, in my view, and in most rational people's view. Your hands don't curl up, you jab people in the eye, and you pull your hand back immediately after you've accomplished your goal. Nothing happens to Dejanay Carrington. This isn't really even discussed. She gets questioned about it once. Caitlin Clark gets questioned about it. Caitlin Clark takes the high road. She's not engaging. Hats off to Caitlin Clark.
It's a sneaky way to tarnish Clark's image without actually throwing her name in the mud. And let's not forget, this isn't the first time these two have clashed. There was already some bad blood brewing from a previous incident that put them both at the center of controversy. Flashback to August 14th, 2024, during a heated matchup between the Indiana Fever and the Connecticut Sun. Alyssa Thomas set what can only be described as the hardest screen known to mankind on Caitlin Clark. We're not talking about your run-of-the-mill basketball screen here. Clark, known for zipping around the court like a bolt of lightning, was completely blindsided and hit the floor like a ton of bricks. The impact was brutal. Fans watching live literally gasped, thinking she'd snapped her ankle or something. And what did the refs do? They called an offensive foul on Thomas and brushed it off like it was no big deal. No review, no flagrant foul consideration, nothing.
The WNBA, because it's a woke league and because it's leaned into people directing their hatred of Caitlin Clark at Caitlin Clark fans.
Even some WNBA analysts, like Diana Taurasi, weighed in, criticizing how poorly the whole situation was handled. She flat out said Thomas should have been ejected for such a reckless play. But did Clark herself make a big deal out of it? Not a chance. She popped right back up, flashed that trademark grin, and even gave a playful wink to the crowd as if to say, I'm good and this isn't going to mess me up. It was a classic Caitlin move. While everyone else was losing their minds over the lack of officiating, she stayed calm, collected, and unbothered. It was a powerful moment, one that only made her fans love her even more.
And it comes as a byproduct of, Caitlin, I love you to death. But girl, if you don't work on that defense, you ain't winning no championships.
But for Alyssa, that's when things started spiraling out of control. Clark's fans were furious, and they made sure Alyssa felt the heat online. Around the same time, Clark released a statement saying,
they fired her. They kicked her off the game because it's Caitlin Clark and she can't do that game.
Instead of owning up to a play that could have easily injured one of the brightest stars in the league, she did the complete opposite. Alyssa started painting herself as the victim, claiming that the backlash was all about race and not about her nearly taking out a rookie phenom. It was a total deflection, and anyone paying attention could see right through it. The fans were mad because she played dirty. Simple as that. Race had nothing to do with it.
She had to go to the NBA because of players calling all kinds of nasty racial names to Caitlin Clark, white bitch being the most of. I mean, that's the players. Now they sit up there, the one idiot.
But Alyssa wasn't interested in explaining herself. Nope, she doubled down, throwing around accusations and pointing fingers, hoping to create enough chaos to divert attention from why she was catching heat in the first place. For a moment, it looked like it might work. She managed to drag Caitlin Clark's name into the controversy, making it seem like the backlash she was receiving was some sort of coordinated attack by Clark's racist fans. But let's be real, it was all just a smokescreen. When you strip it down to the basics, this whole mess started because Alyssa didn't want to own up to her reckless play and her terrible performance. So she decided to weaponize controversy to shield herself from criticism.
Your most important player, the person that's driving all of your engagement, everybody's making money off Caitlin Clark. She gets gouged in the eye by a player who clearly hates her. We've seen the previous behavior this season. We've seen her tweet, clearly hates her. WNBA, there's no statement being made. Hey, we got to be more careful. We got these ladies with these long fingernails. We can't have this happen. We investigated this. We don't think it's intentional. We do think it's intentional. None of that happened. It's an actual joke that it did happen. Something that the players can joke and laugh about and mock later.
What's even crazier is that by going down this route, Alyssa has only made things worse for herself. Now, instead of just dealing with the fallout from a single game, she's turned it into a full-blown scandal. She thought she could dodge one controversy by creating another, but all she's done is dig herself into a deeper hole. It wasn't just the fans kicking up a storm. Sports analysts and commentators from every corner of the internet chimed in as well. Former WNBA legends like Lisa Leslie and Cheryl Miller didn't pull any punches, labeling Thomas's hit as unsportsmanlike and outright dangerous.
Caitlin Clark came in as the most impactful player that the WNBA was seeing as a rookie based off of what we saw in college, from both off and on the court, whether it was attendance, viewership, to her on the court with the scoring and assists. That's how she was when she was drafted. She exits her rookie season as exactly that.
On ESPN's The Jump, the panel picked apart the play frame by frame, with Rachel Nichols throwing major shade, saying, "You don't set a screen like that unless you're either making a statement or trying to injure someone." By the next day, every major sports show was all over it. Analysts on Around the Horn, Pardon the Interruption, and every other hot take show you can think of were debating whether Thomas should have been ejected or outright suspended. As if things couldn't get any messier, Angel Reese jumped into the fray. Because why not add a little more fuel to the fire, right? Reese, who's never been one to shy away from drama, took to social media and her own podcast to defend Thomas and go after Clark's fan base.
One idiot is wearing her shades thinking she's some model. This one here, it's uncalled for. Let me tell you something else. It's very simple to do. See this phone? Don't go on social media.
She revived her own set of grievances against Clark's supporters, repeating the same old claims that Clark's fans were inherently biased and always coming for black players. But in the end, the controversy surrounding Thomas's foul turned into something much bigger, something neither she nor Reese could control. What started as a questionable screen in a regular season game spiraled into a full-blown scandal that has now put them both on the hot seat. By trying to sidestep one mess, they managed to create an even bigger one, and now the focus is squarely on them, not Clark's fan base.